I had never been more nervous and excited at the same time. College. A fresh start. A whole new world waiting to unfold. As I stood outside my dorm building, clutching a folder that had already started to wrinkle in my grip, I felt that weird mix of anticipation and anxiety pulsing through me. Being the youngest of three brothers meant I'd grown up hearing endless stories about wild parties, epic friendships, and the kind of freedom that only came once you left home. My brothers made college sound like a chaotic movie: beer pong championships, dramatic hookups, inside jokes that lasted a lifetime. I was ready to write my own version of that script. But if I'm honest, I was scared out of my mind. I'd come out only a few months before graduation, quietly, to a close friend, and then my parents. I wasn't even sure I knew what being out really meant yet, but it was a start. I figured college might be where I'd finally begin to understand myself. Maybe even find someone like me. Orientation was awkward. There were group games I half-heartedly played, name tags that kept peeling off everyone's shirts, and icebreaker questions that made my palms sweat. I got paired with a guy who was clearly too stoned to know what building we were in. But I hardly noticed because someone else had caught my eye across the room. He was tall. Not just regular tall. I mean towering, probably 6'4" or more. Built like an athlete, with broad shoulders and a laid-back way of carrying himself that made him impossible not to notice. Dirty blonde hair fell slightly over his brow, and his jawline looked like it had been designed by a sculptor with something to prove. He didn't speak much, just smiled when someone cracked a joke. But when his eyes passed over me, even just for a second, my stomach did this ridiculous little backflip.
I figured that was that.
A harmless crush. A face I'd forget by next week. Until I opened the door to my dorm room. It was smaller than I expected. 2 twin beds on opposite sides, 2 desks, and a tiny bathroom that looked like it had been squeezed in as an afterthought. Not exactly glamorous. The walls were bare and the air had that strange scent of new carpet mixed with industrial cleaner. It already felt like a prison cell, but one I was determined to make my own. I picked the bed on the right, sat down, and started flipping through a book I wasn't really reading. Just something to do while I waited for the stranger I'd be living with for the next year. The door creaked open behind me. I looked up and froze. It was him. The guy from orientation. The tall one. The one who made my stomach flutter like a faulty ceiling fan. He walked in like he owned the room, dragging a gym bag behind him and tossing a second one over his shoulder. His shirt clung to his chest with the faint sheen of sweat. And without missing a beat, he pulled it over his head and tossed it onto his bed. "Sup," he said, like it was the most casual thing in the world. "Sup," I replied, my voice cracking just slightly. Not nearly as cool. He was shirtless. Muscles flexed and moved beneath his tan skin like something out of a fitness video. I tried not to stare. Tried really hard. But I knew my face was already turning red. "Name's Hunter," he said, flopping down onto the mattress across from me and propping himself up on his elbows. "Corey," I managed, still pretending to read my book. Hunter stretched, yawned, then reached down to unlace his sneakers. His demeanor was completely relaxed, like he'd done this 100 times before. He kicked off his shoes and glanced my way. "You got a girlfriend back home?" The question hit me like a ping-pong ball to the forehead. I blinked. It was a simple question, but one that had always made my chest tighten. I paused, then decided, new place, new rules. Honesty first. "No," I said quietly. "I'm gay." I waited for the awkward silence, for the laugh, for the look of surprise or discomfort, the same reactions I'd seen before from classmates or distant relatives. But Hunter just nodded.
"Cool," he said.
"One of my bros back in California is gay, too. Super chill guy." That was it. No judgment. No follow-up questions. Just acceptance. I exhaled for what felt like the first time since arriving. "Thanks," I said and meant it. He leaned back and closed his eyes, already making himself at home. "I had a girlfriend for a while," he added, stretching his arms behind his head. "We broke up right before I got here. Sucks, but whatever. Fresh start, right?" "Right." I nodded, trying not to notice the way the light from the window hit his abs. "You'll like it here," he said after a moment, his voice low and relaxed. College is whatever you want it to be. And maybe, just maybe, it could be more than I ever expected. I'd known Hunter for less than a week, and already I was pretty sure he wasn't real. Not in a ghost roommate way. In a there's no way a guy like this actually exists way. Tall, athletic, stupidly good-looking, and not a jerk. I was waiting for the catch. There had to be one. There always was. Back in high school, the jocks had two modes, smug and mean. Hunter was the opposite. He never made me feel small. He didn't dominate conversations. Didn't throw around macho jokes. He just existed in this low-key confident way that made everyone relax around him. Even me.
Well,
Mostly. The more time I spent in that tiny dorm room, the more I realized something else about him. Hunter had absolutely no concept of personal space or modesty at all. If he wasn't walking around shirtless, he was lounging in boxer briefs. He'd hold entire conversations while changing pants, brushing his teeth shirtless, or casually drying himself off with a towel that barely stayed up. At first, I tried not to notice. Then I tried harder. Eventually, I gave up pretending it didn't affect me. He was gorgeous, and I was only human. But despite all that, it wasn't just his body I was drawn to. Hunter had this quiet kindness that came out in the little things. Remembering to grab me a soda when he went to the dining hall. Pausing his music when I was studying. Asking if I needed help setting up my laptop without making it seem like I couldn't handle it myself. It felt good. Safe. I started looking forward to our late-night chats, both of us lying on our beds, lights low, sharing bits of ourselves. He'd tell stories from high school football trips and how his older sister once accidentally shaved off one of his eyebrows in a prank gone wrong. I'd share carefully filtered memories of school, leaving out the lonelier parts. The hiding. The nights I'd stare at the ceiling, wondering if I'd ever really be seen. One night, he caught me watching him as he lifted weights using a makeshift setup by the window. "You want to try?" he asked, nodding at the dumbbells. I laughed. "I'd break both arms." He grinned.
Nah.
"You've got more strength than you think." He wasn't just talking about the weights. I felt it. I felt a lot of things I wasn't sure what to do with. Then came Friday. I was lying on my bed, nose buried in a textbook I wasn't really reading, when Hunter burst into the room, smelling like gym sweat and soap. He peeled off his shirt mid-step and wiped his face with it. "Yo," he said. "Party tonight at the Ridgeview house. You in?" I froze. A party? With strangers? With him? Oh, I've got some stuff to catch up on. He raised an eyebrow. "You sure? It's just a chill thing. Some guys from the team. Music.
Drinks.
Nothing wild." I nodded. Probably too quickly. "Next time." He didn't push it. Just shrugged and tossed his damp shirt into the hamper. "All right. More snacks for me." He disappeared into the bathroom, and I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. It wasn't that I didn't want to go. I did. I wanted to walk into that party and laugh alongside him, feel like I belonged beside him. But the idea of being the awkward gay kid at a party full of confident straight guys, I couldn't do it.
Not yet.
That night, after Hunter left, the room felt emptier than usual. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering what he was doing. If he was dancing with someone. If he was laughing like he always did. Wondering if he ever thought of me when I wasn't around. When he came back later than I expected, he was humming something under his breath. His eyes were sleepy but soft. "Didn't think you'd still be up," he said, kicking off his shoes. Couldn't sleep. He flopped onto his bed in nothing but his briefs and let out a long sigh. "I think I ate a whole bag of chips by myself. I regret nothing." I laughed and he smiled. It was a quiet moment, but one I felt all the way in my chest. As he rolled onto his side, eyes half closed, he muttered, "You should have come. Would have been more fun." Maybe he didn't mean anything by it, but maybe he did. It was just another Friday night. I was in bed pretending to scroll my phone, pretending not to wonder who Hunter was laughing with or what song was playing wherever he'd gone. The dorm felt colder without him. Or maybe that was just me being dramatic. It was well past midnight when I heard the familiar shuffle of feet in the hallway, the clumsy kind that meant Hunter had definitely been drinking. The door opened, bumping into the wall with a dull thud. Oops, he muttered. I turned my head slightly. He was a mess. Hair mussed, cheeks pink, hoodie half-zipped and crooked. Still managed to look annoyingly good. Corey, he slurred, grinning like a kid who'd won a prize. Why is the room spinning? Gravity's had enough of you, I said, laughing softly. He stumbled toward his bed, missed, and landed squarely on mine. I let out a startled noise as the weight of his body made the mattress dip, and he flopped across me like a human backpack. Hunter. He nuzzled into my shoulder, his breath warm against my neck. You're comfy, he murmured. I'm not a pillow. You're better than a pillow. I was frozen. Every cell in my body was fully, painfully aware of every inch of him. The warmth of his chest pressed against mine. The weight of his leg thrown lazily over my thighs. The casual way he clung to me like we'd done this 100 times before. But we hadn't. And yet I didn't move. His breathing slowed within minutes. He'd passed out. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering how this had happened, wondering what it meant or didn't mean. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt his hand twitch against my waist or his breath flutter over my collarbone, and my brain would fire off into another overthinking spiral. Still, I didn't want to move. Not even an inch. He stirred once, mumbled something about hot dogs, then tightened his grip around me. I almost laughed, quietly, of course. The moment was too strange, too soft, too special to disturb. Eventually, the sun began to creep through the blinds. Hunter rolled over with a groggy groan and blinked at the ceiling. Did I fall on you last night? He asked, stretching like a cat.
Yeah.
You kind of used me as a body pillow. He laughed. Damn, sorry man. Hope I didn't crush your ribs. No. You're just heavy. Strong, he corrected with a wink. He sat up, rubbed his face, and yawned. It was like the whole thing didn't even register as weird to him. But for me, it changed everything. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The feel of his arm draped over my chest. The way he murmured in his sleep. The accidental intimacy of it all. It was innocent, sure. Nothing technically happened. But the emotional impact was massive. And maybe I imagined it, but after that night, Hunter seemed to change just a little. He started touching me more. Not in a creepy way. In a casual Hunter kind of way. A hand on my shoulder when he passed behind me. A playful nudge when I made a sarcastic comment. A lingering pat on my back that lasted just a moment longer than it needed to. One afternoon, we were walking across campus when he threw his arm over my shoulder like it was the most natural thing in the world. You walk like you're avoiding landmines, he teased. I walk like someone who trips over flat surfaces. Fair, he laughed and squeezed my shoulder before letting go. Every gesture felt small, harmless, but they left ripples I couldn't ignore. They made my heart stutter and my mind spiral. And worst of all, they gave me hope. I didn't know what Hunter meant by any of it. I didn't know if it was just him being friendly, or if he noticed how I froze every time he got close. But I knew how I felt. Too much, too fast, and yet I couldn't stop falling. All right, Corey. No more excuses. Hunter stood in front of my bed with his arms crossed and an annoyingly charming grin on his face. You're coming to this party. End of discussion. I looked up from my laptop, pretending to be knee-deep in some online reading. I've got class early tomorrow. It's Saturday. Don't make me drag you out of this room, man. I sighed. You kind of already are. Hunter smirked and tossed a hoodie in my chest. Wear that. It brings out your eyes. I blinked. You notice my eyes? Of course I notice your eyes, he said, like it was obvious. You've got those big sad cartoon dog eyes. They're tragic. Girls love that stuff. Or guys, whichever. He winked and turned to the mirror to adjust his chain. I stared at the hoodie in my lap. I wasn't sure whether to be flattered, confused, or both. An hour later, I found myself following him down the hallway, nerves bubbling in my stomach like shaken soda. We arrived at a big off-campus house with lights strung across the porch and the low pulse of bass thudding from inside. You'll be fine, Hunter said, clapping me on the back. I've got your 6. I nodded because words had kind of left me by then. Inside was packed. Shoulder-to-shoulder students, red Solo cups everywhere, laughter spilling over from every corner. Hunter moved through the chaos with ease, offering high fives and fist bumps like some kind of campus celebrity. He finally pulled me into a quieter room where a couple of guys lounged on a couch. One of them stood when he saw Hunter and fist bumped him. "Yo, dude. Dylan, meet Corey." "My roomie," Hunter said, slinging an arm around my shoulders like we were best friends in a coming-of-age movie. Dylan was shorter than Hunter, but still tall. Solid frame, friendly face, bright eyes that didn't judge. He handed me a beer and grinned. "Sup, sup." I echoed, "Sup." The three of us sat, and for a moment the room felt easier. Dylan cracked a joke about one of the football coaches being allergic to grass, which made zero sense, but still made Hunter snort his drink. "You play anything?"
Dylan asked me.
I shrugged. "Used to mess around with baseball in high school. Nothing serious." He nodded.
Cool. Cool.
"You seem more like the chill type." Hunter laughed. "He's the chillest dude I've ever met. Like, sometimes I wonder if he's even real." I try to hide my smile behind my drink. "So," Dylan said, tilting his head, "Hunter said you're into guys." I nearly choked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am." Dylan held up his hands. "No worries, man. Just checking. I've never had a gay friend before." Hunter jumped in. "You still don't? Corey's my friend. You're just some guy he met tonight." "Wow." Dylan grinned. I laughed nervously, but I was oddly relieved. It wasn't teasing. Not the cruel kind, anyway. More like friendly banter. "Don't worry," Dylan said. "We don't bite. Unless you ask nicely," Hunter added with a smirk, elbowing me playfully. I knew he was joking. I knew it didn't mean anything. But my chest tightened anyway. It was like this the rest of the night. Jokes, drinks, laughter. Hunter kept one eye on me the whole time, making sure I wasn't left out. At one point, he even nudged me toward a guy from the swim team and whispered, "He's single, by the way." I nodded politely, made small talk, but the whole time my eyes kept drifting back to Hunter. The way he leaned back when he laughed. The way his hand rested casually on the back of the couch, fingers inches from mine. I didn't want the guy from the swim team. I wanted the one who brought me here. The one who walked me through the crowd, like I mattered. Later, as we walked back to the dorm in the crisp night air, he looked over at me. "See, that wasn't so bad." "No," I said. "It was fun." He smiled. "Dylan liked you." I shrugged. "He's cool. You should hang out with him more. Get out there. Meet people." "Is that what you want?" I asked before I could stop myself. He looked at me. Really looked at me. "I just want you to feel like you belong here." I nodded. That should have made me feel good. Supported. But all I felt was tangled. Because the more he pushed me toward someone else, the more I wished he'd just turn and say, "Forget them. Stay with me." But he didn't. And I didn't ask. The next time Hunter dragged me to a party, I didn't protest. Not really. Maybe it was the way he grinned when I said yes. Maybe it was the hoodie he tossed my way, the same one as last time, the one he said brought out my eyes. Or maybe I just didn't want to be alone that night. The house was louder this time, warmer, packed with people and pulsing with bass. Someone had rigged fairy lights across the ceiling. Beer pong tables were already full. I clung to Hunter's side at first, and he didn't seem to mind. "Dylan's around here somewhere," he said, leaning in so only I could hear. "Try not to make him fall in love with you." I laughed awkwardly.
Right.
"I'll try to restrain my overwhelming charm." "You're funnier when you're sarcastic," he said, giving my shoulder a squeeze. That touch again. Always those small, harmless touches that meant too much to me. Dylan found us near the kitchen. He gave me a fist bump, then pulled me into a playful one-armed hug. "Look who's finally becoming a regular," he said. "At this rate, you'll be king of campus in no time." "Doubt it," I said, but I smiled. He handed me a cup and clinked his own against it. "Cheers to progress." Hunter wandered off. To find the nachos or to give me space. I wasn't sure which. Dylan and I found ourselves leaning against a wall in the quieter hallway just off the main room. He asked about my classes. I asked about his latest gym obsession. He told me he'd started stretching more because some TikTok guy said flexibility is hot. You going to start posting shirtless yoga videos next? I teased. He grinned. Depends. Would you watch them? I blinked. Was that flirting? I laughed, trying to play it cool. Maybe. Dylan looked at me for a beat too long, then nudged my arm. You're fun, Corey. You've got that whole smart, mysterious energy. I nearly choked on my drink. Mysterious?
Yeah.
You're not like the other guys here. They're all trying to impress everyone. You don't. I think that just means I'm socially anxious, I muttered, and he laughed. Whatever it is, it works. I could feel my ears burning, and for a moment I let myself enjoy it. The attention, the comfort, the possibility that maybe someone liked me back. Maybe I wasn't invisible after all. But just as I started to relax, I caught a glimpse through the doorway. Hunter leaning against the wall, watching us. His expression wasn't angry, not even annoyed, but something in his jaw was tight. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. When our eyes met, he raised his cup and gave me a small nod, like approval, or permission, or dismissal. I looked back at Dylan. He was saying something about hiking and trails in the gym, but my focus had splintered. Was Hunter happy for me? Was this what he wanted all along? For me to meet someone and move on? Or did it bother him even a little, seeing me laugh with someone else? We eventually wandered outside for air. The porch was empty, the night crisp and still. Hey, Dylan said, quieter now. Can I ask you something?
Sure.
You and Hunter, you're not, together, right? My heart thudded. No, I said quickly. We're just roommates. He nodded.
Cool.
I just didn't want to overstep or anything. You're not, I lied. He leaned against the railing beside me. You ever think about it? You and him. I hesitated. Too long. Okay, I'll take that as a yes, he said, half laughing. I don't know what he wants, I admitted. He's hard to read. Dylan looked back through the window at the party. Seems like he wants you to be happy. Yeah, I whispered. But does he want me? That was the question eating me alive. Every moment with Hunter felt close. Too close. Every casual touch, every playful smirk, every time he leaned a little too near or held a gaze a little too long. Was he just being a good friend? Or was he scared to admit he wanted more? And if he didn't, why did it still feel like I was his? I woke up with a weight in my chest that had nothing to do with sleep. The sunlight was cutting through the blinds, soft and golden. And the room was quiet, just the gentle whir of our ceiling fan and the occasional chirp of a bird outside. But inside my head, it was chaos. I stared at the ceiling, replaying the night before in fragments. Dylan's arm brushing mine, his compliments, his almost flirtation. And then Hunter standing in the doorway, cup in hand, watching like a silent audience I hadn't signed up for. What if I'd ruined something? Not the friendship, I wasn't even sure what that meant anymore, but something more delicate. Something unnamed. That tension that hung between Hunter and me like an invisible thread. Had I crossed a line trying to move on from something that was never even real? I rolled onto my side, expecting Hunter to be buried under his sheets, maybe snoring or groaning through a hangover. But his bed was empty. He was already up. I stared at the indent in his pillow and closed my eyes again. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel like I'd won anything. Mostly, I just felt hollow. When he finally walked back in, balancing 2 mugs of coffee like it was any other morning, I tensed. Morning, he said, placing one on my desk and sipping from his own. You snore when you're stressed, I blinked.
What?
He grinned. Last night, you sounded like a cartoon bear. I smiled in spite of myself. Thanks. That's comforting. He sat down on the edge of his bed, stretching his arms over his head until his shirt lifted enough to reveal the faintest outline of his abs. You good? He asked casually, but there was a softness behind the words. I hesitated.
Yeah.
Just overthinking as usual. He nodded like he understood. And maybe he did. To my surprise, he didn't seem awkward or distant. If anything, he was more affectionate that morning, brushing his hand across my back when I walked by, tossing his sweatshirt at me when I said I was cold. At one point, He ruffled my hair while I was brushing my teeth. None of it made sense. By late afternoon, I was spiraling again. My brain couldn't decide whether Hunter was comforting me, teasing me, or keeping me on some emotional leash I couldn't see. But the moment that really undid me came the next morning. I was lying on my side, half awake, wrapped in the kind of blanket cocoon you never want to leave. I opened my eyes slowly and caught sight of him sitting on his bed, just sitting quietly, watching me. His elbows rested on his knees. His hands were clasped. His eyes weren't wide or surprised, just soft, like he was looking at something he didn't fully understand, but didn't want to look away from. "You okay?" I asked, my voice still thick with sleep. He blinked once, like coming out of a daydream, and nodded.
Yeah.
"Just thinking."
About what?
He shrugged. "Everything. Nothing. I don't know." He leaned back on his palms and exhaled long and low. It was the kind of silence you don't break with jokes, the kind that asks for honesty. So I sat up. "Can I ask you something?"
Yeah.
"Last night, when you saw me talking to Dylan, you looked, I don't know, weird." He looked down at his lap. "I wasn't mad. I didn't say you were. He ran a hand through his hair. "It's stupid. Try me." He looked at me then, eyes searching. "It's weird seeing you with someone else."
I don't even know why.
"I was the one trying to push you to meet people. Remember?" I nodded. "I guess," he continued, "I thought it would make me feel like a good friend, helping you get out there. But then I saw you laughing with Dylan, and I realized something I didn't expect." "What?" He hesitated. I didn't like it. The words hung between us like steam from a boiling pot. "Not because of Dylan," he added quickly. "He's cool. I didn't like that it wasn't me making you smile."
I swallowed hard.
"You confuse me, Hunter." "I confuse myself." He leaned forward again, elbows on knees. "I've never had a roommate like you," he said.
Never.
"I've had a friend like you. And I don't know what this is or isn't. I just know I care about you more than I probably should." The room felt too small for all that truth. "I've been trying not to get my hopes up," I said quietly. "Because you're you and I'm me, and I didn't want to ruin anything." He looked at me again, more serious now. "You didn't ruin anything. If anything, I've been the coward here." "Then what do we do?" He smiled. That small, hesitant smile I hadn't seen before. "I don't know. But maybe we start by not pretending we're just roommates anymore." The dorm room was still. It was late, the kind of late where even the streetlights outside seemed tired. I was lying in bed with a half-read novel in my hands, pretending to be focused. But every time the floor creaked in the hallway, my eyes flicked to the door. Hunter had been gone for hours. He'd left earlier saying he needed air, which wasn't unusual. But something in his voice had unsettled me. He didn't smile, didn't make a joke, just grabbed his hoodie and left. I hadn't realized how much space he took up in this room until he wasn't in it. Then, finally, the click of the door. He stepped inside, slow and quiet. His shoulders were slouched, his face unreadable. I sat up without thinking. "Hey," I said softly. "You okay?" He shut the door behind him and leaned against it, his hands still in the pocket of his hoodie. "I walked around campus twice," he said. I nodded, waiting. "I thought maybe I'd come back with answers," he continued, "or a plan, or something that made all of this feel simple." He pulled off his hoodie, dropped it on his chair, and sat down on the edge of my bed. Not his.
Mine.
I closed my book, but I asked. He looked at me, eyes tired. "But nothing simple, and I don't have a plan. All I know is I didn't want to be anywhere else but here." Something twisted in my chest. Hunter ran a hand through his hair like he was searching for words that didn't exist yet. "I don't know what I'm doing, Corey. I don't know what this is between us. I've never been this close to someone and still felt so unsure." He paused. "But when I'm around you, I feel calm, like I can actually breathe." I swallowed, heart pounding. "I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly, eyes darting to mine. "I'm not saying I'm ready for labels, or that I've figured myself out. I need you to know that being near you makes me feel okay in a way I didn't even realize I needed." He looked so small in that moment. Not physically, of course. He was still tall, broad, intimidating to anyone who didn't know him. But emotionally, he looked like a boy standing in the middle of a storm, unsure of which way to run. "I don't need you to have all the answers," I said quietly. "I just want you to be honest with me." "I'm trying," he whispered. And then, without another word, he leaned in slowly, hesitantly, and rested his head on my shoulder. His weight was warm,
Grounding.
his breath soft against my neck. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just let the moment hold us. After a few minutes, he let out a long, tired sigh. I didn't know who else I could come to. "You came to the right place," I whispered. We sat there like that for a long time. The room bathed in low amber light from the lamp on my desk. No music, no noise, just the sound of our breathing syncing up like it always had, even when we were strangers pretending to be nothing more than roommates. Eventually he shifted. Not to pull away, but to pull me closer. His arms slid around my waist, his forehead tucked into the side of my neck. And before I could think too hard about it, I let my hand drift across his back. It felt like something we'd done before in another life. Something our bodies remembered, even if our minds were still catching up. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. We just lay down side by side, wrapped around each other. No barriers. No jokes to break the silence. His thumb brushed against my ribs through the fabric of my shirt, almost absent-mindedly, like he was reminding himself I was real. And then he whispered, "You're the only thing that feels solid right now." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. I just pulled him a little closer. That night, we didn't kiss. We didn't talk. We just fell asleep like that, tangled in each other, intentionally, quietly, wholly present. And for the first time since coming to college, I didn't feel alone. Things didn't change overnight. Hunter didn't wake up the next morning with a label or a plan. He still hit the gym before breakfast. Still walked around in nothing but his boxers. Still stole my snacks and called it roommate tax. But something was different. Something quiet. Something steady. He became softer. Not weaker, never that. Just gentler with me. He started showing up to my classes unannounced, walking me back to the dorm like it was the most natural thing in the world. His arm would rest across my shoulders as we cut across campus. Sometimes he'd ruffle my hair or nudge me when I overthought out loud, which, to be fair, was often. People noticed. They always do. We started hearing whispers, little jokes in the dining hall, grins exchanged when we passed through the rec center. Are they together? They're so close. Roommates or soulmates? Hunter didn't seem to care. In fact, if anything, he seemed to lean into it. One afternoon, we were at the campus cafe waiting for our coffees when a group of girls sitting by the window started whispering loudly enough for it to be obvious. Hunter leaned in and muttered, "Bet they're writing fanfiction about us." I choked on my drink. "You're not that famous." "I'm adorable," he said, nudging my knee with his. "You're just lucky you live with me." He said it with a smile. But I didn't miss the way his hand brushed against mine under the table, or the way he didn't pull it back when our pinkies accidentally hooked. At night, he still slept in his bed most of the time, but more often than not, we ended up on mine. A movie playing in the background, the screen long forgotten, our bodies pressed close, just breathing. I'd stopped questioning what it meant. Whatever this was, it wasn't nothing. Then came the night that sealed it. We were at a campus party, one of the less chaotic ones. A bonfire night out by the old quarry. Music, drinks, half the student body standing under the stars like they suddenly cared about constellations. Hunter and I stood near the edge of the crowd. The fire crackled, casting warm light over his face. He looked tired but peaceful. A girl from his psych class came up and started chatting. She was sweet, flirty, the kind of girl who smiled too much and stood a little too close. I stepped back, giving him space, pretending to check my phone. That's when I felt it. His hand slipping into mine.
Warm. Certain. Steady.
I looked up, startled.
He didn't say anything.
Just gave the tiniest nod, like he was saying, "I see you. I choose this." The girl kept talking, but her eyes flicked down at our hands. She smiled a little, surprised, and then excused herself with grace. My heart pounded in my ears. Was that okay? He asked softly, thumb brushing my knuckle. I nodded.
Yeah.
It was more than okay. We didn't make a big show of it. No declarations. No kiss under the stars. Just stood there, hand in hand, letting the firelight flicker between us. For once, I didn't care who saw. That night, walking back to the dorm, our fingers still intertwined, I realized something that caught me off guard. College had started as a promise of freedom. Freedom from high school, from secrets, from small-town expectations. But somewhere between orientation and now, I'd found more than freedom. I'd found someone worth falling for. Someone who made silence feel full. Someone who saw me, really saw me, and stayed anyway. And even if we never figured out all the answers, I knew this much. This wasn't just a phase. It was the beginning of something real. If this story touched your heart or made you feel something real, let us know. Would you want to see what happens next between Corey and Hunter? Should they stay just roommates, or finally become something more? Like this video if you felt the connection. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss part 2. And in the comments tell us, what moment made you believe Hunter might actually feel something for Corey?